So today we are going to be doing as much review as we have time, pretty much, in preparation for that test. The test is Friday, during regularly scheduled class hours. And I do want to announce to you that the music tutor, Micah, he has informed me that he'll be holding a test review tomorrow evening. I don't know if he sent you all information about that. If not, maybe he will.
He said probably around 6, but he's not sure yet.
Yeah, he emailed me last night after I asked him, and he said it's going to be tomorrow, so that's Thursday between 6 and 7 p.m. And he said it would be in this room. Okay, so if you have that time available, I would encourage you to come if you feel like you could use some more help and practice on this stuff before the test. Remember that tests do count a lot more for your overall course grade than your individual homework assignments and quizzes do. So you want to do the best you can, obviously, on this first one. So I just wanted to let you know about that before I forgot. Again, it's optional. You don't have to go, but if you can and you would like to and you want to see what it's like, then I would encourage you to go. The next thing I'd like to announce is the fact that you do have some homework for me today, and I have decided, because I talked about a quiz later today, I've decided not to collect the homework, but we will definitely take some time now to go over the answers to make sure that you're doing everything on that assignment correctly. So let me start off by booting up the document camera, and then I'll turn on the TVs, and hopefully that will be working so I can show you the answers and kind of what you need to be putting down on your paper for this. So on the front side of the homework, got this first example, which is notated correctly. And the information for this example, it is in simple triple meaning. And the time signature is 3-2. Most of this information I can gather by looking at this week where all the eights are being together, and then also after this is a half note. The eighth notes are subdivisions of the beat. You have to think in terms of how many quarter notes would fit in this beat here. And that is 2 quarter notes, which is the equivalent in length to 4 eighth notes. So we know that the beat divides into 2 equal parts, 2 quarter notes. So that makes it simple. And we know that a simple time signature gives us information directly about the beat. So 3-2 means there are 3 beats in a measure, and the half note gets the beat. The next one, this one is I thought this one's a little tricky. This one happens to be in compound duple meter, and the correct time signature for this example is 6-4. 6-4. You might initially look at a beat like this and say, well, look, there's 4 eighth notes being together, so they all belong to one beat. And there's 4 eighth notes being together, so they all belong to one beat. And that's true, they do. But that's not the entire beat. Okay? Because these 4 eighth notes are in both cases, they're followed by a quarter note that complements or it fills out the rest of the beat. There's just no beat there because quarter notes never take beats. So what I do is I look at this beat here. How many eighth notes are being together? The answer is 6. 6 eighth notes all belong to one beat. Let's reduce that to something in terms of 2 or 3. Because division is always in 2s and 3s. 6/8 notes can be reduced to, let me think about this, 3/4 notes, right? 3/4 notes. Every 2/8 notes you could think of as a quarter note. And in that case, then we would say that the beat divides into 3/4 notes, which makes it compound. Another way to confirm that is to look at this last measure. You see how each beat is a dotted half? Whenever your beat is a dotted note value, you're in compound meter, and you're dealing with compound time signature. Does not a dotted half divide evenly into 3/4, like we were saying? So, and because only 2 dotted halves fit in a measure, we have 2 beats in a measure, that makes it compound duple. And then finally, we remember that the numbers of a compound time signature tell us about the divisions of the beat, not the beat itself. So how many quarters would fit in a measure? Well, the answer is 6 quarters. So 6 is the top number, 4 for the quarter note, which is the division, is the bottom. Yeah.
So the dotted half note, will it, like you said, will it always be compound, like in any situation?
Yeah, whenever your beat is a dotted note, like a dotted quarter, or a dotted half, or a dotted eighth, you're automatically dealing with compound. Yeah, that's right. Okay, the next one, I hope you got something along the lines of compound quadruple with a time signature of 12/16. Again, I can look at a number of beats here for clarity. For instance, any of these 2 beats at the end of the first measure, you see how they're beamed. What that shows me is that there are 3/16 notes to a beat. 3/16 notes to a beat. The fact that there's 3 of them means I'm in compound division. What 1 note duration would represent an entire beat if 3/16 fit into it? Yeah, go ahead.
The quarter eighth, or the dotted eighth.
The dotted eighth, that's right. The dotted eighth. So once again, we calculated a beat, which is a dotted value, so it has to be compound. How many beats fit into a measure? Well, again, look at this first measure. It's pretty clear. There's a beam group, that's 1 beat. Here's a beam group, that's another beat, etc., etc. You should count 4 beats that fit in the measure. So compound quadruple. Whenever you have compound quadruple, the top number is always 12. 12. And what is the duration of one of those itty-bitty little divisions? 16. That's right. So the time signature is 12/16. The last one is simple quadruple, or 4/8. Time signature should be 4/8. You might think that it could be 2/4, and I would understand that where you could get 2/4, but I would say this is not 2/4, because if it were, the first 2 eighth notes would be beamed together, and then this eighth note would be beamed to those 16ths, showing 2 separate beats rather than 4 separate beats. So again, simple time signatures, the numbers give you all the information you need right about the beat directly. So there are 4 eighth notes in the measure. So we have 4 as the top number, 8 as the bottom number. The eighth note gets the beat. Does anyone have any other questions about anything?
Can you just explain, I'm a little confused on the time signatures and how you find the time signatures.
For a particular one, for instance, or?
I'm just kind of confused.
Okay, well,
What are the rules?
okay, so anytime you have simple, if it's simple, triple, quadruple, whatever, the numbers for a time signature give you information all about the beat. So in this case, since I have 4 beats in a measure, and my eighth note gets the beat, I'm 4/8. But a compound, when you're in compound meter, it's different. The time signature numbers tell you something completely different. The numbers of the time signature, for instance, in this 12/16 example, since I'm in compound beat division, the numbers, see, in compound meter, the beat is always going to be a dotted note. And dotted notes can't be reflected in time signatures very well. So the numbers of a compound time signature have to give us information not about the beat, but about the divisions of the beat in a measure. How many divisions fit in a measure, and what note duration serves as one division. So in the 12/16 example, there's 4 beats. That makes it quadruple. The beat divides into 3 equal 16th notes. That makes it compound. And because it's compound meter, now I know that my numbers of the time signature have to refer all about the 16th notes, not the dotted eighth. You see how the dotted eighth would be the beat if you have 3 16th notes in a beat? But the numbers don't tell me about the dotted eighth, they tell me about the divisions. How many divisions fit in a measure? How many 16th notes would fit in that measure? The answer is 12. Because you have 4 beats, and each one is divided, can be divided into 3 16ths. So 4 times 3 is 12. And then you give me the number on the bottom, tells me the duration of one division, not what the beat is. And a little division is the 16th note in this case.
Thank you.
Yep, sure. Yes?
Could you explain one more time why the last one isn't 2-4?
Yeah, okay, it's not 2-4 because if it was, we have to assume in these that the notation is correct. And if it was 2-4, there would be a beam here connecting those two, and then there would be a beam connecting this eighth with these 2 16ths to show a chunk and then another chunk, or 2 beats. But because there's nothing beamed together in the first measure in terms of eighth notes, then I have to assume that all of these notes are on separate beats. So that's how I count that there are 4 beats rather than 2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good, yeah. Good question. Any other questions before I go to the other side? Okay, so let's just check your rhythmic notation against mine. I try to show the answer, the correct rhythmic answer, right underneath the incorrect one. So if you look at the first one in 6/8, you know, some of these seem very familiar to me. Did we do any of these in class? Are these duplications of something we've done on a previous assignment or something we did in class? I can't remember. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my imagination. So I think maybe the best way to handle this section is, if you see something that I've notated in a measure for a particular problem, you don't understand how I got it, maybe you could ask me specifically about that measure, rather than me trying to explain every note in every measure for every problem. So I'll give you a moment to look at it.
Would this be incorrect?
Yeah, that would be incorrect because, yeah, let me write that on the board. We're looking at the first beat of the second measure in this last example. And the question is, can you notate something like this in 4/4 for a beat? Well, it's a lot closer and it's a lot better looking than what's up there. But it's not all the way clarified. There's another step you can take. And that is, because all these notes are on the same beat, we can actually simplify. An eighth tied to a 16th is the same as a dotted beat. And since a dotted eighth still gets a beam, we can actually notate it like that. And we can still see that these notes are on one and the same beat. Does that help? Okay.
On the second measure of the second one was 9/8,
Yeah.
and that half note tied to a quarter note, can we instead make it like two dotted quarter notes tied to each other to show each beat?
Yeah, and you know, in that case, I would probably look at that and say, you know, I just might give you full credit for that. It's the middle measure of the 9/8 example. Can you rewrite it like this, those first 2 beats? Absolutely. And this is clearer than a half note tied to a quarter. But again, going back to the back of that handout, can I simplify this even further? This is a case of multiple whole beats. And yeah, there is actually one note value that can actually take the place of both of these. I know it doesn't show both of the beats as clearly, but this is just as easy to read because it's in the same increments, so to speak, as this. But I would look at this and I'd probably give you full credit for that. Yeah, yes.
For the fourth one, first measure, instead of the dotted quarter and the eighth note, could you do the
Yeah,
bar the 2/8 notes?
yeah. In other words, I think, are you asking about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be perfectly fine
Yeah, that's
also.
what I did.
That would be perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mhm. Good question. Other comments or questions? Which do you find, I'm just curious, maybe it's different for everybody, what do you find is more difficult? The rhythm and meter stuff or the key signatures and the scale stuff? You think this is more difficult for you? Some people would say, how can you even ask that? This is way harder than that. But I don't know, maybe you find memorizing the key signatures and writing the three forms of the minor scale are tricky. Yes?
On the last, the 4/4 bar, on the second measure, why is the second game not, why is there not a 16 note?
On the second beat?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the, where's my pencil? If you look at the beginning here, let's add this up. An eighth tied to a 16 is the same thing as a dotted eighth, right?
Yeah.
Is a dotted eighth as long as a quarter note? No, but the quarter note is the beat duration you want. So this 16 here, that separately flagged one, correctly goes on beat 1.
Okay.
And that's why I've got it here, named with the dotted eighth, which is replacing the eighth tied with that 16. Does that help? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say what you said the other day helped me
Okay.
write what gets the beat above the
Yeah.
word and then.
Yeah, if you know what gets the beat, like for instance in 4/4, and you know you need to parcel everything into these units, because we know the quarter note gets the unit, just fit everything into those chunks. That can be helpful. Now, can you do that with the compound meter stuff? Yeah, absolutely. For instance, the 9/8 one, you know your beat, hopefully you know that your beat is the dotted eighth, so that takes care of that much, and then that much, and then that much. I don't have a lot of room in there, but if that helps you, you can see that, and that's guiding you is, okay, how do I conform and shape and beam all these things to get them into distinct units of the beat? That's the overall goal. Thank you. Good, other comments or questions? All right, then let's go down to the bottom section and just see how you're doing with this. Do you all know what I mean when I have, always do this this way out. Do you all know what I mean when I have like a 7 with an arrow up and a 6 with an arrow up and that kind of thing? Yeah, it means the major version or the raised version of that scale degree. So if you'd like to take a moment and check your answers along with mine, I'm just asking for specific notes. Like for instance, number 1, scale degree 4 is B flat in the key of F minor. F minor, and so on and so forth. And again, that's kind of what, we did a little bit of that earlier in the semester. So again, using number 1 as an example, if B flat is 4, that means some sort of A is 3, that means some sort of G is scale degree 2, that means some sort of F is scale degree 1. And that's how I get F for F minor. And I know it's not F sharp minor because B flat wouldn't be in that key. And there's no such thing as F flat minor, so that's ridiculous. All right, questions about a specific one? Questions about how to do that? Yeah.
For the ones with the raised 7th or the raised 6th or the lowered 7th.
Yeah. Oh, you just wanted like a general?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was more coming to your question.
No.
For these ones, what? All right, so number 3, let's take a look at that one. The raised seventh scale degree is B sharp in what key? What minor key? Well, I had talked one day about how the raised seventh scale degree is always just a half step below scale degree 8. And scale degree 8 or scale degree 1 is always the name of the key. So if B sharp is a half step below, what's a half step above a B sharp? And you have to use a different letter name. You can't say B double sharp. C sharp would be a half step above. So that's how I got C sharp there. Remember, raised 7 is always just, for those of you that are in my oral skills with me, we call it T. It's just a half step below the tonic pitch or the key note. Number 9, let's go to number 9. Raised 6 is G sharp in B minor. Okay. Now again, when I had some of these different versions of the minor scale on the board, raised 6 is always a whole step above scale degree 5. That's kind of one way I look at it. So if G sharp is a whole step above 5, which is F sharp, then I can count either up or down until I get to scale degree 1 or 8 and find that it's B. Okay. And then finally, number 12, lowered 7th scale degree is always a whole step below scale degree 8. So E then, E is a whole step below what note? And the answer turns out to be F sharp. I think it goes back to several class periods, but it was where I had like the natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. And I tried to circle the notes in different colors. How the natural minor uses lowered 6 and 7. The harmonic minor uses lowered 6 but raised 7. And then the melodic minor uses raised 6 and 7 on the way up, etc. And then lowered on the way down. And I was trying to show that we can observe or we can see how far away from fixed points, like scale degree 8, how far away is raised 7? It's always a half step below. How far away from fixed 8 is lowered 7? It's always a whole step below. How far away from fixed scale degree 5, which never changes, how far above that is lowered 6? It's a half step. How far above scale degree 5 is raised 6? It's a whole step. So I use that kind of knowledge to help me figure out something that's more immutable or fixed in the scale, and then I can count to find scale degree 1 or 8, which gives me the name of the key. Okay, good. Other questions or comments? All right, now, I was thinking about this for the past few days, and I was thinking, if I gave you this quiz for a grade, I would really not have time to grade it and give it back to you with feedback for the test. So what I've decided is, can we look at the quiz together and do it not for a grade? Would that be okay with you all? Okay. This will just give you more clarity, hopefully, of like, am I ready to do these kinds of things? Because if I'm not, then I need to study for the test, that's all. So we're going to just do this together. It's not for a grade. This is more of a comprehensive type of quiz. It goes back to scales. It's kind of like a mini version, yeah. So I think last fall I actually gave this as a quiz, and I had students take it, and then I collected it for a grade, but this semester I guess I'm not doing so. Now, I don't really know much more I can say about section 1. You've got to know your key signatures by memory. There's no other way around it, right? You've just got to know. You've got to know how many flats or sharps are in the key. You've got to know the order of flats and sharps for that key, and you've got to know where to place those on the staff appropriately based on whether or not you're dealing with your treble clef or bass clef, right? Treble clef or bass clef. So For instance, number 1, and again, when it comes to test time on Friday, if you don't know this, I can't help you. But in section 1, B flat major. What's the key signature for B flat major? You need, yes?
B A flat.
Yeah, it's 2 flats, and then those flats are in the order are B flat and E flat, and they have to go right here in the treble clef, nowhere else. Okay? So again, if you don't feel confident or comfortable with that, please do some memorization or some study, hardcore study between now and Friday's class. The next one, which is still in the treble clef, is E major. Does anyone know what E major's key signature is?
3 flats, B, E, and
Careful.
That's
A. 4
It's not E flat major.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Look
It's
carefully.
4 sharps.
Yeah, 4 sharps. Yeah, and that's one thing you gotta do on the test. Try not to rush over something, because if you look at this as E flat major, you'll get the wrong answer, the wrong key signature. E major, though, in the treble clef is 4 sharps, which is F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. And they have to go right there. What is the key signature for D minor?
1 flat,
That's right, 1 flat, and 1 flat is which one?
B flat.
B flat, that's right. And in the bass clef, that goes down here. Last but not least, F sharp minor. Please be careful to read this as F sharp minor, not F minor. I get a lot of students that will write 4 flats for this key signature, when it's technically F sharp minor, not F minor. So what is F sharp minor's key signature?
3 sharps.
3 sharps, that's right. And in the bass clef, they go right here, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. You can count on the test, you can count on there being maybe 4 or 5 or even 6 key signatures to either write or identify. Okay. Let's go on. Write the following scales using accidentals. No key signatures. Not key signatures. Okay. B melodic minor. I know it seems trivial, but be careful that you start on a B and you end on a B. I still have students that are starting on the wrong pitch, and that means the scale is completely off. What is wrong with these black markers? I need a better one. Let's see. Let me try this one over here. Yeah, that's a little better. Melodic minor, right? We need to write ascending and descending. I think the best way to spell a melodic minor scale is to write out or spell a natural minor scale first. Because the natural minor scale conforms exactly to and uses the key signature. And we all know these by now. What is B minor's key signature?
2 sharps.
2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp. Now I have a grandiose natural minor scale correctly spelled going up and down. What 2 scale degrees do I alter or change to make that into ascending melodic minor?
The 6 and 7 on descending.
That's right, the 6 and 7. And what do I do to them? I raise them. Do I throw them out the window? I know you'd like to, but no, you raise 6 and 7. So that means G natural becomes G sharp, A natural becomes A sharp, and then on the way down, they all 6 and 7 need to be a half step lower. So it looks like technically maybe this is A natural and G natural, but I like you to be ultra clear and put accidentals on these anyways. And that would be my final answer for the B melodic minor, ascending and descending scale. Also, keep an eye out on the test on Friday for changing clefs. Some measures will use treble clef, other measures I might ask you to spell a scale in the bass clef. This is important, so that you start at the right note. So here we are in the bass clef. The next one you have, does it say F major? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna start, make sure I start on an F. You guys are getting to be veterans at this now. Major, oh, what a relief, right? You just have to follow the key signature. What is F major's key signature?
One flat,
Yeah, and that flat is which one?
B.
B flat. Ta-da, you're done. I'm gonna just keep erasing and making more space so that we keep going. The next one is rhythm. Well, we are in 3/4 meter, it looks like. But the rhythm is notated poorly or incorrectly for that meter. It doesn't show the 3 beats clearly in each of the measures. Oh, we got 4 meters here. 3/4, as you know, is a simple time signature. All these numbers tell you everything you need to about the main beat. 3 beats to a measure, what note duration gets the beat? A quarter. How many eighths fill or fit into a quarter? 2. So that means the first 2 eighths need to be beamed together, but they can't be beamed to anything else. Now, you might say, well, can I do this then? Almost. I just can't see the end of beat 2 and the beginning of beat 3. So what do I need to do? Who can see?
Divide that quarter note into 8 notes.
That's right.
So the first one to the one before it and put a
Yeah.
bar for the second one.
Yeah, so divide the quarter note into 2 eighths. The first of those eighths gets beamed on beat 2. The second of the eighths,
It's tied to
yep,
the.
and then you gotta put a time, that's right, so that it sounds the same, yep. Okay, the next measure, again, remember quarter, maybe I should even write down here. 3/4 notes are our goal for sizes for all these measures. How many, in measure 2, how many 16th notes should I beam together?
4.
That's right, 4. So let's do that. And, oh man, this is too easy. What's left over then? I've got 2 eighths, don't I? And that fills beat 2. And then do I have to do anything to the final quarter? No, yeah, please leave it alone. If it works, if it fits, serves as the beat or fills the beat precisely, yeah, don't bother messing with it. All right. There's a couple ways I think we can clarify measure 3, although I've got a preferred method in mind. do you guys want to handle that?
I take the dotted quarter tied to the eighth and make it a half pound.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Don't even try to split up the dotted quarter or anything like that. A dotted quarter tied to an eighth is a half. And that covers beats 1 and 2 of the measure. And then what you have left over is 2/8. Do I need to mess with the last measure at all? That's how I would rewrite that. All right, now, section 4, these kinds of problems can be some of the trickiest. Let's be careful here. The notation, the rhythmic notation is correct for this example. I would probably look at the first half of the second measure to help me get started. You see how there are 3/8 notes beamed together there. All those 8 notes belong to one and the same beat. Looking at the other groups of notes that are beamed or connected by beams, how many beats are there in a measure? 2, good. So what's going in the rightmost column? Duple, triple, or quadruple? Duple, yeah, automatically put duple there. So get your mind thinking along those lines. Okay. Now, does the beat divide into 2 or 3 parts? Well, I'll go back to that group of 3/8 notes. How many smaller parts does the beat divide into? 3. So that makes it, what, simple or compound? Compound. Okay, so compound duple. Now, finally, what do the numbers of a compound time signature refer to? They refer to the divisions of the beat, not the beat itself. So, what is the duration of one little division?
Eighth note?
An eighth note. That's right. Again, I'm looking at this beat with the 3 even eighth notes. Okay? So 8 must be the, yes, 8 must be the bottom number. And how many eighth notes would fit into one measure? 6. So 6 must be the top number. Now, I don't ask you this in here, but you can figure it out. What is the duration of a whole full beat? It's got to be a dotted dot. A dotted what?
Dotted quarter count?
A dotted quarter, yeah. Because 3/8 would take up the same time span as a dotted quarter. Okay, how do we feel about that? If I took this 4th grade, would you have gotten 100%? Or at least gotten an A, hopefully? Yeah. That's the idea. I've got one more thing to give you, which we won't be able to finish. But I want to even give you more opportunity, as if you haven't had enough, right? More opportunity to practice. And so along those lines, I have something that I call the Test 1 review. Now, we won't be able to finish this today, but if any of you go and take advantage of Micah's review at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, take this with you. You should have a copy as well. But I want to give it to you so you can just see what kinds of things are fair game, I guess, for me to ask for your test. It's front and back. I don't know if it's worth mentioning, but you know, there's some big, I guess, bigger universities, big schools in this country where in certain classes, I bet to the professor, oh, hey, look, I got a note. Thanks, I'll read that in a second. But there are some bigger universities where I'm sure the professor, when it comes to the test time, doesn't even bother with review. Just, you gotta take the test when it's time, that's it. So, you see on this test review now that the first section is all key signatures. I'll leave that up to you. Notice that the clef changes midway through there. Be very observant of that. Number 2, we just did an example of writing a melodic minor scale. You can get some more practice on that. Number 3, we just rewrote a rhythm correctly, given the incorrect notation. So I'll let you again work on that. But number 4, we haven't done this in a long time. You remember the good old days when all we had to do was correct chord notation in general? Let me see if I can, here's my copy. Let's see if we can rewrite these, what are these, just 2 little measures for number 4? Let's see if we can do this together. All right. I'll start to, let's see. I didn't tell you how many errors, but let's start finding some of them. Who can find one error? Yeah.
Key signature, is that written correctly?
Yeah, the key signature is backwards. It's got to be the B flat first and then the E flat, right? So that's one error. How about another error? Just general notation.
The, what's it called, the dotted quarter note, it's actually on the other side, on the right side of it.
Yeah, okay, so the first note, right, the dot has to be on the other side. Yeah, I would agree. So that's an error right there that you gotta fix. And,
The stem needs to go down.
yeah, the stem needs to actually go down. Here, let me see if I can do this a little better. The down stem and then the dot goes to the right. So there's, we already got 3 errors. Yes?
The eighth notes on the third beat, the note had to be facing the other way,
Yeah.
to the right instead of the left.
It's just it just looks really weird. The stems, they're going the right direction, but they're on the wrong side of the note head. So what I would do is probably write them like this. Oops, let me get the right pitch. Yep. Okay. So far, so good. Anything wrong with beat 4 in the first measure?
Should the stems be going up?
Yeah, the stem should be going up because the A is the furthest note from the middle line. So that determines the stem direction for everything being together. And then there's one more error.
The dot on the half note should be like a line above it, or a space above it, I mean.
That's right. The dot on the last note should be in the space above, not in the space below. I'll tell you, to be honest, it's really hard to get a computer software notation to do things wrong. Rather than just be, but anyways. So that's it. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. Was there 6 errors that we fixed, I think, in that little example?
Will we do the same amount of errors on the test?
I think I do. Let me just double check. If I look into the back here. No, I don't think I do. Nope, I actually don't. I just tell you to rewrite to reflect correct notation. On the back side of your sheet, look at section 5. It's been a while since we've done some of that, right? I want you to be able to identify each of the clefs by its specific name, and then each of the notes. And remember, when we write note names, be careful on the test. I'm going to ask you to give me the octave register number. So if the note is D, like the first one, that's part of it, but which D is it? Does anyone know which D that is? That's right, D5. So don't forget the registered number. Let's just skip down to the very bottom one, number 7. Identify the following scale. I think it would be good to go over how we do this again. The question is that a major scale? Is that a natural minor, harmonic minor, or melodic minor scale? And by the way, if I give you a scale to identify, if it's melodic minor, I'm only going to give you one of the directions. I'm only going to give you the ascending one. Yeah. So you can't say, well, because it's not going down also, then I know it's not melodic minor. That's not going to be the case. Can anyone remember back a few classes, several classes ago, there's some, the distance between certain scale degrees near the beginning of the scale that help us decide right away whether it's major or minor. Does anyone remember that?
The third ruler,
Okay,
and.
yeah, but how do we know that, like, for instance, if this third scale degree is that lower compared to what? You see, we have to look at, something a
It's
little
the
more.
distance between 3 and 4.
Yeah, okay, so in a major scale, what is the distance between scale degrees 3 and 4? A half step in a major scale. But in a minor scale, what is the distance between scale degrees 2 and 3?
A full step. Oh, 2 and 3 is a half step.
2 and 3 is a half step. So it depends on where the half step is what I'm trying to say. Do I have a half step in this scale between scale degrees 2 and 3, or between 3 and 4? 2 and 3. So that makes it automatically what? Minor, yes. It's not a major scale. Starts and ends on E flat. It's some kind of E flat minor scale. Now, from this point, I would use my knowledge of E flat minor's key signature. E flat minor's key signature is, how many flats? 6. E flat minor, right? Not E flat major. So 6 flats. Now again, don't bother counting the last flat, because that's a duplicate of the first one. How many flats do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that following E flat minor's key signature exactly? Yes, so which form of the minor must this scale be?
Natural.
Natural.
What would be the changes if it was harmonic or melodic?
Okay, if this was E flat harmonic minor, you would have towards the end here you have a D natural, which would be the raised 7, only a half step below 8. If it was ascending melodic minor, you would have C natural and D natural. Scale degrees 6 and 7. And if you know E flat minor's key signature, you know that E flat minor has C flats and D flats in its key signature. If those aren't there, if they're raised to something else like C natural, D natural, then that means it's got to be either the harmonic or the ascending melodic version. If it doesn't match the key signature exactly. Okay, now. I have in my notes, be careful, you'll want to pay particular attention on the test to instructions such as major or minor for key signatures. Pay attention, as I said, to when I ask for octave designation or octave register number. Pay attention to changing clefs. And then one final thing here. One possible enharmonic spelling of the pitch F. How could I enharmonically respell F? There's one way. What would you say? E sharp. Good. That would work. What's another way you could enharmonically respell F? Can you think of another possibility? Okay, G flat, close, that would be like F sharp.
G double.
Yeah, G double. But either answer would be perfectly fine. Right, remember the anharmonics we did? All right, so take that test review with you. If you want to see any of the answers or you want some extra help and you can't see Micah, please email me or come visit me in my office and I'll be happy to help you finish that up. Otherwise, I guess we'll see you for the test on Friday.